basically, I have a demo site here. I'm going to go down a list of items that I think are popular or common, features that clients want, and then just show you how I did them. Let's see. So there is an outline at this URL down here, attached files, if you want to follow there. All right, so this first view has a couple of neat features. Now, there's an attached area here, which is the accordion feature, and then down here you're going to see how I've pulled out the nodes of different content types, page, feed, and story. I grouped them by the content type, and then I took the title of the node and I inserted the content type into the title, the node title itself, and then some extra text. And I'm just going to show you how I did that without any programming at all. As far as usability goes, I'm definitely not giving you advice there. I'm just showing you little neat tricks, okay? So let's see, I'm going to come back to the accordion thing later because I do like that. But if you edit this view, you hover over these links that kind of show up as you hover somewhere, and sometimes you have to chase them. They like hide really quick when your mouse goes near them, so you have to move really quick. It's pretty ridiculous. So let me break this lock so we can edit this. One moment. Sometimes views get a lock on them if you've edited them in another browser. Now, I want to show you a little gotcha that will drive you nuts too. As I clicked edit, you'll see here that a view has a bunch of different layouts or tabs over here. And when I clicked edit, it put me right into the attachment layout. And if I mess around with things here, but I really wanted to mess around with things in the page area, and maybe I'll show that in a moment, it could just be easy to forget that, oh, I'm looking at attachments, I'm trying to do stuff here when I really meant to look at the page in the page tab. So, and I think I'll have some time to explain that more, but I just want to keep moving on that. So anyways, in the page or the attachment in this case, if I click on the field title, you can see that, actually I took that away. If I click on the title, you can see that I clicked rewrite the output of this field. And it's here that Views lets me, without any code, take that field and instead of outputting the title, I could output a lot of different things. Now in this case, I took tokens. And these are tokens that are available to me to use in the actual output area here. And now those tokens are only available because this particular title field is underneath all these other fields. And the node link field, which is below the title field, won't show up in my list of tokens. So it's just a little catch. And there's a lot of documentation and little areas to read about this. But so right off the bat, I can do something kind of tricky with the title output and use the title output token, but also put the change date, put the type, and put a path there and body to just make this a little bit more tweaked for whatever reason. Because clients never want what the software does. They always want to do something a little different, right? So in this case, I was able to do it and without any code. It's really cool, and it means it just becomes easier for you to really manage this stuff too. So, let's see, match by, okay. Now, one good example of where this was fun to manage or to deal with was on this guy here, I have this little hover effect. And it's a little like, you go to Netflix, you get that nice hover effect. And you see here, I had to just install the one jQuery hover module to then make that effect happen, because in that view itself, I took the node title and I used all those tokens. And the tokens are set up in a way to work with the hover query, which you can look up. There's documentation on really how easy it is to make that hover query happen. But with no code at all as far as PHP goes and crazy jQuery, I was able to make that hover effect happen. In this case, I added a field to the link called title, and I took the title token and the body token, and I put that all into the href, so that when the output happens, you're seeing what the body would be of that particular node. It's a nice little effect. People, clients want that little extra effect. and that was how that was, I was able to do that without any real coding at all. Yeah, so that rewrite feature in the view is just a nice little hidden secret, and those tokens to know that you could put them, if they're above the field that you're rewriting, then you're going to see all those tokens. One other little nuance there is that I'll cover the nuance. Now let's look at grouping. When we went back over here, I grouped my node types I grouped this output by the node type. Is there a good reason in this case? No, but maybe you had news, maybe you had videos, maybe you had different node types that you want to group when you output your page. So I was able to just quickly do that with the grouping feature that Views comes with. So if we edit this view again, and I move away from the attachment, and we go into the page, I just want to make sure to come back to attachment because I'm realizing that's really neat. If we come back to the page here, though, I can choose that, let's see, I'm doing a HTML list output, pretty basic. And then I'm choosing its settings, which is this little wheel next to the actual style output that we choose. We could have chose different style outputs. And they all let you group almost all of them. And then you click that guy and you can say, okay, I want to group all my fields by the type. And so that was a quick way to just display the data in a way that might make more sense. And one little nuance there as well, when they see that page and it's grouped by page, feed, and everything else, I don't want them to also see the type in the actual output. So I excluded that output right here just by checking that button. And basically what that means is when they go to, man, when you're up here, you forget all these buttons. When you go here, instead of it saying page and then page again, which it does just because I put it into the title, it doesn't have an awkward extra row saying page, which, you know, in this case, it's there because I put it in the title for fun, but it could be awkward to have the group field also show up in the output. And so that was just a good example of excluding that field from the output. So that's one more little tweak with views. I'll have, if people have questions as they go, feel free to ask. I do have kind of like a timeline, and then I have question time after at the end. But feel free if it's really going too fast or whatever, ask a question. Okay, the next one people want are feeds. Okay, feeds are really easy to add. Drupal comes with feeds out of the gate, but you want maybe just a feed for this particular page they're looking at. So in this case, the feed is connected here. Now, a better way to see a feed is in Safari, because it gives you the little feed button here. And when I click that, I get my output of what the feed was. And again, just super simple, thanks to Views, is that when I edit this view, I would add a type of content output. In this case, I would choose feed. Now, you have other content outputs. You have block, you have attachment, which I'll show in a moment. You have content pane, which has to do with view, panels. Context has to do with the context module. I won't go there, but feed is one of the ones that you'll use. I chose feed. And you just have some basic settings to set up and you're ready to go. Feed doesn't really need much for fields. It does it for you. With the feed, you have to choose the style output, which you only really have the RSS feed, but it seems to always start off with you still needing to choose that. And then you go into settings and you would tell it, oh, you could say, you can do some settings there. But for row style, you would choose node, and you can choose the type of content to display. I think maybe there's other modules that could hook in here and do other things for you, but that's a basic feed. And then you want to give it a URL. Now, when I go to demo, it says that I have a feed here, and the demo path is what I established when I first made this view. And when you make a view, which again, this is a little bit this is more basic because I gave it a path. Well, the path for this view is demo link. And the path for that feed just happens to share the demo and then, sorry, I got to click it again. and then it goes feed. And so when I click on my feed URL, they're leaving and they're going to demo feed. And so that's really it to make that feed happen. And then it takes care of the rest for you. And you could alter the feed results too by some other stuff I'll show in a bit to if you want to tweak it more. All right, so, all right, now how about blocks? Let's get back to there. All right, so when we go here, we have a block filter. Views has some really cool search parts that everybody knows about, I'm sure, when you can create a search to filter your content. But in this case, I created a filter that I removed from the view and made a block out of it. And when you click Edit on this view again, and we go back to the page, because that's the main view. Now, a little side note here is, to make your life easier, when you change any of these settings, it changes them for all of your items here. So if I have 4 items here, and I say on my page, oh, I want to remove the node path, well, it's going to remove them for all your outputs, which is convenient, but it can be a bummer if you now did all this work and then you lost that, okay? So in this case, I just want to show really quick that when I'm dealing with an output of a view, I can tell it, by the way, I want to override. In this case, I want to override all the other outputs and just have my own output just for this one area. So
just overrides where you don't want the master settings?
exactly. The default settings, which actually it's kind of not intuitive because the default settings are really affected everywhere. Like, you would think I could click defaults and change all these other settings, but actually I can click any of these and change all the other settings. So it's kind of not, it's really easy to get all this work done, and then you're tweaking out something, you're like, oh wait, I just messed up all my other views. Now, and to even use that word, I was just thinking a moment ago, we're not editing a view, we're editing a bunch of views. So in essence, you're editing a container of views, okay? These are all really views. The older version of Views didn't do this as much, and this newer version does it to make your life easier. But as you can see, it could actually make your life harder if you messed up one and messed up all the others. So just a little catch there. So when I'm looking at the page, we have filters, which are really awesome ways to filter your data. And you could filter your data by many ways, taxonomy, for example. And the thing with a filter is it can be hidden or seen. Let's drop down, let's do that. And we get to this point where I could pre-filter all their output by test, by a vocabulary term, or I can expose this filter for everybody else to use and not necessarily pre-filter my content. So if I was to add this, we now created an extra filter. But more importantly, I wanted to show you how I can take that exposed filter or form, which is basically your search form, and I can expose it as a block. And I can do some other settings, which I'm not going to worry about right now. And by exposing that view as a block, or that filter as a block, and I'm going to cancel out because I don't really want to save that, I now get this nice block over here. Now, this block wouldn't be there unless I went into Drupal's typical block area and said, you know, show the block over here, okay? But right away now I have, instead of having my typical search above my content, which might not be what you want for user reasons or style reasons, it's over here, and now I can filter my content. And down here, and this is a good case of bad user interface because, yeah, because I said, oh, let's use Ajax, because Views has the Ajax effects where it doesn't, well, I don't know I just did something. So I scrolled down, I looked, I like, okay, I see it's there. So you can see that was a bad, you know, choice of Ajax. So, but this filter now is part of my view. It's only showing up here and not getting in the way of my view over here. And it just works. So it's a pretty cool example of these filters you can do for your site and use them in a different way. So.
You can also put that search block on another page.
Yeah, I don't see why not. And then it would shoot you over here, I guess. I don't know what it would do with Ajax. I know with non-Ajax, yeah, it should direct you back over here. Yeah, totally. That's a good idea. See how we're doing on time. Okay, so I got time for attachments. The attachment's really cool. So I always like, when I first saw the new views, I'm like, what is an attachment? And I never wanted to use it because you're busy working on things. So an attachment is a way you can take your page and say, I want more data, right? I want a map on top of this list output, or I want, in this case, an accordion like layout to my data. So I added this attachment, and then I went into the attachment settings and I started messing around with it. And again, the attachment's going to use settings from your original, the other ones you made, so you might want to make sure to override things. So let's look at that really quick. So the attachment, I only want to show maybe a title and some other things I wasn't showing in other places. So right off bat, I click this little sorting item, and I scroll down and I click the override button so that I know right away this particular set of data is just about attachments, okay? And then I can do whatever I want to this set of fields, knowing that it's relative only to my attachments and not to anything else. So I'm not messing up anything else. And then in this case, I tweaked out my attachments to do some things that I wanted it to do, like overwrite the title. I added an extra field, I think. But then I went and got a Views plugin called Views Accordion. And that just shows up now in my option for outputting the style, and I could tweak all its settings. And then I said, okay, I want this attachment to attach itself to my page. So I have my page output here, and I said, okay, I want that attachment to link to that page, and I can have it do other things, like inherit arguments, inherit expose filters. They kind of make sense, and we can go into them later if there's time, or it could be Views 301. And that's basically it. Now when I go to that page, I get this, cool effect of what's kind of popular. I won't say where I've used this recently because he's right there, and if you knew how easy it was. So that's the attachment. I can have several attachments to this one page. I have another page where they wanted their data in a map and they wanted it in a list view, and that was it. It was an attachment as a map and then an attachment as a list view. It was the same content, and other than the style work, you're all set.
What would an attachment look like if it wasn't accordion?
Oh yeah. So okay, let's just change it. I think originally I had it as a grid. Let's make it a grid. So I could say style. So let's make sure I'm on my attachment. I'm on the attachment. As you can see, the style even had to be overridden. If I was using the default style, I would have messed up all my other styles and everything else would have been accordion. So I had to override the style so only the attachment got the style. And this is that's something that you could spend the whole class on because it will drive you nuts when you're working on this stuff and you're like, why is everything getting messed up? Or you'll make 20 different views when you could have made it all in one. So, so Views Accordion, let's go choose, let's choose grid. And then I could say number of columns 2. I don't want to group it, and we should be set. So now when we go back there, we lose the accordion, but we have a grid. And one thing I noticed with attachments is I didn't know how to limit the output. I couldn't say just show 10 things. But basically right now we're seeing 2, 4, 8 things. It's kind of odd, but how would you control that? I'm not quite sure personally. So you could maybe do a date filter. But that's it. So that's all the attachment did. And I could have put it below. I could put another one below. I could put another attachment. Like how many could you have there? And at some point it's just a CSS person then doing the magic there. It's kind of funny. I was saying earlier, it's getting so easy that the hard work is the CSS because now you have to move this into a place people really want it and it looks good. And that in design, there's more work there. Oh, how did I save it to the page? Yeah, let's click edit again.
Like if you want to put it on the home page.
Right, you wouldn't, okay, so the home page, the attachment can only get connected to a page inside the view you're working on, okay? So, that I know of.
Pages on the home page or something?
Well, that's the thing, maybe your home page is a view as well, right? So you would go over to the home page view, edit that, and attach something to it. I don't think you can tell, I'm almost positive you can't tell an attachment just to go anywhere. Now, if you look at the settings down here under attachment settings, where do you want to attach it to? It happens to be called page, but it could be called whatever I decide to call this one. I think if I gave it a name, we'll call it, so it just makes more sense. Let's just come back and edit just so all the cache is clear. So that attachment now, if I click on there and go attach it, it's attached to my demo page, right? Or the default, which the default comes in later on. I'll kind of show something there. But so you couldn't really put it necessarily on the home page unless the home page was a view and you edit that view and make an attachment for that. So that I know of. I mean, you might be able to. I just don't know how. All right, so, all right, let's see if I can squeeze something in here I don't want to lose. All right, here's where you have a lot of power with views when it's not doing exactly what you want. When you click on a view output, you have this settings called theme information. And you click there, and it has all these output options to show you what file it's using to make the output. In this case, I took the node title field and I went down its list and I said, well, what do I want to do? Well, I want to, it's kind of a cascading list. Like, here's the default template file it uses. It's a default field template file. But if you go down the list, there's like, oh, here's a template file that specifically hits the fields, for example, href title, right? So this whole list goes down in order of like, hit every field that every view you have puts out to all the way to being like just the field when you're looking at page 1 of a view. And so if you were to say, I want to overwrite this title that comes out on this view, you could basically copy the title, the file name, and then you could ask it, okay, what goes into this file for data? Like, what do I have to put in this file to make a real file happen here, okay? And so now I have all my code, and I have all my, I have the file name, and if I was to now open my editor and close all my other work, which I don't know why it's open, okay, and go to the folder that has my theme in it, you'll see that I have those view titles. I have the 2 fields that I'm trying to override there, okay? And all I did was I made the file name with the file name it gave me, and then I pasted the code it gave me into that file, all right? And then the moment I go back to my view after putting the file in place, which is relative to the theme I'm using, and then I scroll down and click this button here, it's going to rescan my template file, and all of a sudden it's going to show that, oh, I'm no longer using the default page, I'm using your specific page to output this content. And at that point I can overwrite the output, okay? Does that make sense so far? It's kind of a tough one, but it's because, again, clients never want Drupal outputs, okay? And so it can do all these cool things without touching any extra files, without doing PHP, but at some point you have to get into the file and do something. And they made this super easy to do. So at this point, I could type, hello world demo, and I'm taking its output pretty much like it asked me to do. I don't know if I did it exactly like it asked me to do, but basically, and then I echoed something there. I could do anything else there, which I'll show in a moment, to then come back to the view itself, and now it says hello world demo, right? And so, again, you'll just get stuck in those moments where you have to get something extra. You have to wrap it in an extra div, and you're like, I can't do this with, which you could do with views alone, but just when that moment comes, take that file, overwrite it, and you can do a lot in there. So,
Can you show the path to that file again?
yeah, to where I put the file?
Yeah.
Okay,
Where you picked it up?
right, okay. So when I edit that page, it says, what's your theme information? Well, I know I'm using Manelli for this theme, okay? So that's why the path is whatever path you have your theme that you're using, okay? So in this case, typically with Drupal, your Sites All Themes folder has your themes, the Sites All themes, not the themes folder in the root of Drupal. And in there I have Garland, which is kind of confusing, because it's actually Manelli's inside of Garland. And is that even how you pronounce? Who are those guys that lip sync their way to fame in the 80s or 90s? Yeah, thank you. So that's where that path is. It's easy once you realize it's just my theme. And the trick is, these files really are relative to your theme, so you do all this work and it's not going to work in your other themes, okay? So you're really building a bunch of custom outputs for your theme. Now you can symbolically link those files to anywhere you want and use them. So they're really in one place, but you're taking advantage of the Unix file system to symbolically link it to any theme. And you might have to take a moment, if you said, oh, it's in that theme as well, you might have to choose that theme and refresh the cache by just clicking rescan, because that's all it's really doing is clearing the views cache that I know of. So that's a cool way. I'm going to show you one little tweak I did to take advantage of that, which I probably didn't need to do, but just for demoing. So, and it's kind of covering two topics. Let's see how we're doing on time here. Okay. So here's a good example of where that came in handy. And it's coming in handy in two ways. One way is because I had to output something. But the other way is because I'm using the next cool function, views embed. I don't know, has anyone used views embed view? Yeah, it's a really cool, awesome function that I don't think many people know about. So I made this page called something. Where are you? Here it is. Okay. And there's a little voting widget down there. And Views could probably do this without me doing this, but we're going to just take a look at overwriting a template file and then tweaking it out by putting some cool things in there. So I'm going to edit this view. I'm going to edit up here, and hopefully it's the right view. And I'm going to edit the page, and we're going to look at the theme information, and we're going to see that this file here, the node title, I overwrote. You see how now this is bold instead of this? Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So this file here is sitting in my file system right here, okay? And let's go open it. And you'll see here that I took their advice as like, I said, okay, what do I want here for this file to have just to output the basic thing? And I put that in there, but then I overwrote it. So here's all it really needed, but then I started doing some other things. The first thing I did was I used views embed view. Oh. Does that do anything? Let me go to the white output. Sorry about that. And text color black. Oh, because it's not, oh, my mistake. Sorry, hold on. I was at the terminal. Oh, wow. I was wondering, like, do I like charge people and sell coffee? Like, what is this thing? Is that better? All right. Can people see? All right. So, yeah, thank you. So views embed view is a really cool function, and it's not like crazy PHP. I'm just saying I want votes to equal views embed view. Now, this is the view name. This is the display I want to use. And this is what I was saying before, default. When does default come in handy? Sometimes it comes in handy because you're not making a page, you're just making a default view output. And then, in this case, I'm passing an argument. Now, let's go look at that view real quick. It's really not that useful of a view. Let's list all my views. And let's go edit that view. Views the results, so you see the name here. Defaults. And that default view is just really saying I need an argument. I need to know what node ID you're trying to get data for. And the data are these fields, some counting the votes. And I'm taking that views embed view, and I'm making output by the votes equals, and then I'm echoing the votes output. So you could really, I mean, you could have little maps. You could have anything at this point being a second, it's kind of weird. It's like a view inside a view, and you're getting this more complex output inside this view that you couldn't have done with a view by itself. So, I mean, there's just a ton of things you could do at this point to benefit from that.
Could you use this for the question earlier? If you have the home page is one view and you're editing an attachment on some other view?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, so, but you wouldn't even call it an attachment at that point. You would probably, just use the default output, right? You wouldn't need an attachment because you're like just trying to output that content. And so you would be happy with default. And then you would take that and you would take the views embed view, and maybe because that's your home page, maybe you open the template file, you make a page.home front or whatever, and you put that where you want it and output it there. You could do that for sure, yeah. Things have changed so much where you could do it so many ways with features, context, panels, whatever. But yeah, totally. Another good example is like you have nodes, and every time you want someone to go look at node news, you want a more complex output underneath that node, so you open up that node template file and you stick in a views embed, pull in that node nid, and maybe you output something else, And there's so many ways to do that, but this is a really fun function that it lets you be a little bit more creative, and it lets you not have to code a ton to make things happen. It's pretty strange. One other thing I did was I wanted to pull in the 5-star voting widget, and you could have done it a ton of different ways, but I went into the module and just figured out how it was outputting it on the view, on the node view, and I just put it there. And I passed, and this is not efficient code, so don't use it. But I took the node nid, I did a node load, and I just passed it the node, which this lesson isn't about that. And then I took that output and I threw that into my view. So let's see, without much coding, just throwing in a couple of functions and outputting them, I was able to get a voting widget under here in a total of votes so far, for example. That again, the view could have done this probably without any coding. There's probably a view plugin and a view before long you're just selecting fields and it works, but that was just a good example of the template file overriding it and pushing data out through that template file. And the other thing to keep in mind is this template file is full of information. If you want to see, like, what do I have here for data, that print R row will show me that it's passing all this content. So each time it pushes out a row of data in that view, I have access to this array of data, like the nid, the node type, the title, which is why I was able to take the row, which is the default output of this view, which it tells you right here, and pass the nid to it as well. And so I have access to that data.
I think you just said the several lines of code that you just showed us was not a good way to do it. Why isn't it a good way to do it?
Well, no, because, because the node load, you wouldn't, I don't have to load the node. I forget the trick, it's in the Pro Drupal book, but you can make an empty object node and then just put the nid in there. And then, because this views widget form needs the node object, and in this case, I'm taking the nid, creating the object where I could, it's just a little bit of an extra load on the server, right? So it would be more efficient to make an empty object and to put your nid in there in a way that then it's happy with. It doesn't need all that other stuff. It doesn't need the body, the revision, or anything. Yeah.
You could avoid the select star by doing select it only.
Well, yeah, on the view on this particular 5-star widget form, it needs the whole node object, but it doesn't need everything in the node object. It just needed the format of that object. But otherwise, it's not too bad. I mean, I don't know. I just say that too because I'm, as a coder, you're like, don't look at my code. So,
That's why I wanted to look at it.
yeah, but I would say don't. Because, I've seen some good code. Anything you open up in the, you open up views itself or those guys, Merlin and Chaos, it's like, you realize why who they are who they are. Yeah.
I know you don't want to get too much into the code right now, but just for my own edification, the node load, is that kind of crawling, like you're tabulating, say you have 5 results already, and then on your story view, you do another result. On the update of that, are you calling node load so your upper part kind of goes back to the database? Or?
No, like when you actually do the vote.
Right.
No,
right.
no. It would be cool because there was that little thing here, like where it's counting, and if I vote, it would be cool if it updated that. You could probably get that all to work, but no, not in this case.
Okay.
No, the node load was just to build this object that it only needed one thing out of. It would be cool if I could have just passed it the, row-nid, but I don't think I could. I could be wrong though, but that's how it was being done in the other place I got it from. So that's just how cool the templating system is. And you could overwrite the whole output. Like you could, if you look at those template files, just to come back to that real quick, and then I want to make sure I hit tabs because it's another common thing. If you were to look at this whole template area, you can overwrite the whole page itself. You could overwrite the view if this was a table view output. You could overwrite the whole table. You could, so you have a lot of ability here to just hook, overwrite, wrap things in stuff. Like the CSS person's always like, I need this in a different div, and you're like, oh great, I think they just don't want to do their work, so they send it back to me. But so you can wrap it here and give them what they want really quickly and send it back to them. So this is a ton of power right here. I'm going to skip over to tabs for a moment and come back to these other two cool features. So one of the things that you see a lot is tabs. Like you have 1, 2, 3, 4 tabs here. And this is a feature of views that I think it's really well documented in this page that's really hard to find. So how do you make these 4 things come together to make actually 5, to make a tabbed interface? If you click on the master tab, which doesn't have to be the first tab, and we click edit, and we go to the demo page, we see that there's a couple things to keep in mind. The path, this is going to become our master path, demo/demo link. And when we click on menu now, this is becoming the default menu tab. And I gave it a weight of 400, minus 400, just for the heck of it, to shoot it all the way to the left. But I think if I said 400, it would go all the way to the right, but still be the master tab. And now this became the master tab, so keep in mind the path and the default menu tab. So let's go to one of its sub-tabs. Let's go to this guy. Now when I come to this one, I click on page, and I say, well, what is its path? Well, its path is a subpath of demo. So demo becomes the parent path that everything has to go under to work. And then I had to say, okay, where are you in the menu structure? Well, you're not a normal menu, you're not a no menu, and you're not a default menu, you're a menu tab. And I gave it a name and a weight. The weight is just, it's just 300, whatever. I don't know why I did 302, no clue. And so now it's going to show up next to whatever's, relative to that weight. And so now that's how I could quickly build that structure with the tabs. But keep in mind, when we're sitting here looking at basic rewrite, the first tab, my URL isn't demo whatever I had it as, you see? If we go back to demo 1 and I click edit, and we edit its path, look what its path really is. It's demo link, you see? For some reason, it just, it actually should work at both of these, you see? And just to keep it in mind, so the subpath to this whole tab structure is just demo. And if we go to demo 3 and we click it and we edit its page, we're going to see that, we're going to see its path as demo / whatever. So as long as it's all sitting within that demo subpath, it will be fine. So that's really cool. Tabs are a nice feature. All right, so we have maybe 5 minutes. I could open up to some questions. If there's no questions, I can look at draggable views and then bulk operations, 2 really cool features of views. Should I just look at those, or people?
You mentioned that tabs is well documented, but hard to find.
Yeah.
Can you show us how to find it?
Yeah. Let's see. It's actually this handout. How did I lose that page? I think I linked it here. I stumbled upon it one night. I'm like, oh gosh. I mean, they're using the Garland theme, but it's at views-help.doc.logris. I don't even know who that is, It's like, I'm sure it's somewhere else. I'm sure it's actually in the view files. But you can go there. If you grab the handout after this, it's in the handout, which you can go to the website and get, or go to this URL.
You don't need to go back to your tabs page, but if you did go to the page where you got those tabs.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like tabs to me, because
Oh,
visually
yeah, I
tabs
know.
have that, you know, you can sort of see it.
Yeah, yeah. It's just,
If you wanted to change it so it looked like that,
Yeah.
would that be easy, hard, or impossible?
it's easy. It's up to the CSS person to come in. That's all it is. That's just CSS. Now they can come in and do whatever they want, basically. Yeah. So, any other questions? Oh, hey.
This might be more of a database question, it doesn't, what you cover, but we can help out. I'm trying to get a view that has multiple databases on the same server talking to, is that possible? Or-
Yeah, like different databases themselves, right?
Yes.
There's a data module which works with Views 6 that can actually go to different tables and it can look at the data of those tables and show it into a view and then tie those views together with other data that's really Drupal data. Then there's the migrate module, which I think creates views, I don't know. But that's more Drupal 7. Migrate module is Drupal 6, and the second version of that you can code so that you can connect to different databases. So the short answer is it's hard to do database to database, but easy to do other tables in Drupal. So if you use the data module and you can pull that data into a table into your database, it'd be easy. Yeah, it's wicked easy. That module is really cool, data. I think I got 2 more minutes. Any other questions? I can show draggable views real quick. So draggable is like, people love this one. You know, you drag it around. It's a great way to sort an image database. So I could put image 4 up above image 2 and click save. That's a really simple one. You get the draggable plugin, and you make the style draggable, just like it tells you. And you set its few settings, and it's pretty well documented. The only trick is I use a CCK field to sort my data. It uses its own built-in field. And then I tend to give my data a CCK field that the client can use to pick which number, 1 through 10, or whatever you want to give it for a weight. And I use that in my sort criteria. So if we were to go look at one of those nodes we were sorting, I didn't output the node. It would have a CCK field that's like 1 through 10, and they can choose what weight they want, because Drupal uses, I use the logic Drupal uses for the weight system. And so with that draggable view, the client can easily sort their data and manage it, and that's it. The other cool one is bulk operations. It's another module that you plug in, and it takes views and it makes it so you can make an interface so people can do bulk operations and manage their data. And that wasn't around a few years ago, and that's just awesome when it works. It is kind of odd. It doesn't always work. So anyways, that's a quick overview of some of those little tricks and views that I think are easy to miss. So, and that's it. Oh,
So how bad does it get when it doesn't work?
views bulk operation?
Any of this stuff?
Oh, most of it really works well. It's views bulk operation I've always had little hassles with and never get my hopes up. But there are some things it does really well. There's just those moments. So,
I have 2 quick questions.
yeah.
As far as I can tell on Drupal 6, it seems like the views that you create, you can't disable them, you can only delete them.
Oh, okay.
To be able to disable them.
Yeah, if you want to disable a view, you could actually, it's a good point. Let's see if I can go list a view. Admin, build. So what you're asking is well, I can disable them here though. Oh yeah, okay, so one I made. What I would do is I would put a permission level on it that only I can get to maybe. So when you edit a view, it's a really easy one to miss, but you can give your views permissions, which is really cool. And where is this guy? Access control, and you can restrict it by a role or permission, like admin site permission or a role. That's a really good point, though. I don't know why you can't disable it. Yeah.
So that would allow you to, or?
It would allow you to at least block anyone from seeing it accidentally. It would block Google from caching it. It would block everybody from getting to it except you, as that person who logs in with that access level. There's no way, yeah, but it's a good point. I don't know how you would disable it.
Because it would be good, and maybe you're kind of in the exploratory phase, and it'd be nice,
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah, I would say set it to those permissions. So you can only, yeah, it's a really good point, because you want to clone a view to maybe do some updates and see if it works. Yeah.
Another one, if you have been creating views and blocks and
that you made inside of views,
Yeah.
you would have to delete them from that view, because you can't delete them from the block area because they're part of some other code. I don't think you can disable it. You could remove the title from it and it won't show up in the blocks area. It has a title name, I think. So that would make sense, because I've gone looking for them and there's no title. So, I saw another hand. I don't know if we have.
I was just wondering what if you was something using a view and you restrict access to it.
Like at the time that they're using it?
Well, I'm just saying, if you've got a page that's
Oh, yeah.
been specifically set up for and you block the access to the end user,
Yeah.
what happens when that doesn't happen?
If it was running that whole page, they'd probably get access denied or page not found. But if it was running just a block inside that page, the block would just go away. Yeah.
What do you think of semantic views?
I actually was going to cover that, but I always run out of time. It's an add-on that, gives you all these features to make, like the CSS people tend to like it. It helps you clean up your views output, minimize some of the output so it's cleaner for CSS, and add some classes and things that you might need.
I didn't see a lot of downloads for it as much as
I
I
know.
would like to see, so I was wondering if there was any quirks about it or in the community, if people had problems.
Yeah, no, I hear a lot of good about it, but yeah, I don't know why a lot of people don't use it. I don't know.
What's the name of that view?
Semantic views. Yeah. It's kind of like a few people now are really focusing on cleaning up the output of Drupal. So, and that's one of those things.
It needs the name.
I know, it sounds like,
Doesn't describe it, it does.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah, I heard it on a podcast, so that's why.
Could you just comment about the views module in 7 and is this stuff like,
Right. Is it useless?
is it useless now or is it?
I don't know enough yet. We're building a site with 7 that I'm scared to even open up views right now. It's not due for a few more months that I have to think about views. But it is views alpha right now. So it's a really good point. Will they throw away all this? There's a lot of back and forth about making the user interface better. So there's research on that. I don't think you'll lose features, though. I think you'll just have a better interface. So, but it's a really good question. I don't know. I should have looked that one up. All right, I think that's it then.
Great job.
Thank you.